There is a moment, just before dawn, when the savannah falls silent, the insects pause, the wind stills, and in that fragile quiet, a woman sits beside a fire that has burned through the night, her infant pressed against her chest, her eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the flames. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of light, something took her brother 3 days ago. She heard his screams, she saw the blood on the grass the next morning. And yet here she sits, not paralyzed, not broken, but alive, alert, and somehow still capable of hope. This is not a story of superhuman strength. It is not a tale of denial or emotional numbness. What kept this woman functioning, what allowed her to nurse her child and gather food and move with her group to safer ground, was something far more remarkable. It was a psychological mechanism so sophisticated, so deeply woven into the architecture of the human mind, that we are only now beginning to understand its power. Ancient humans did not simply endure trauma. They developed an intricate system of cognitive tools that transformed suffering into something survivable. And in many ways, that system still operates within us today. To understand how early humans processed devastating experiences, we must first abandon our modern assumptions about trauma. We tend to think of psychological wounds as problems to be solved, disorders to be treated, conditions that require intervention. But for the vast majority of human existence, there were no therapists, no medications, no clinical frameworks. There was only the relentless pressure of survival and the remarkable plasticity of the human brain responding to that pressure. Consider what daily life meant for our ancestors. Death was not an abstraction visited upon the elderly in distant hospitals. It was immediate, visceral, and constant. Children died before their first year. Hunting parties never returned. Diseases swept through camps with terrifying speed. Violence between groups was common and brutal. If every loss had shattered the human psyche completely, our species would have vanished long before we ever built our first permanent shelters. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The human brain evolved mechanisms that did not eliminate trauma, but rather transformed how it was stored, processed, and ultimately integrated into ongoing existence. The first of these mechanisms involved memory itself. Modern neuroscience has revealed that traumatic memories are not recorded the same way as ordinary experiences. When the brain perceives an extreme threat, the amygdala floods the system with stress hormones that enhance certain aspects of memory while fragmenting others. This is why trauma survivors often recall vivid sensory details but struggle to construct coherent narratives of what happened. The smell of smoke, the sound of a scream, the texture of cold stone. These elements burn themselves into neural pathways with unusual intensity. For ancient humans, this fragmentation served a crucial purpose. By breaking traumatic experience into disconnected sensory pieces rather than a continuous replay, the brain prevented the constant re-experiencing that would have made functioning impossible. A hunter who lost his companion to a predator could still return to the grasslands because the memory existed not as an unbroken loop, but as isolated fragments that could be managed, avoided, or gradually processed over time. But memory modification was only the beginning. Perhaps the most powerful psychological tool ancient humans possessed was something we might call collective meaning-making. The ability to transform individual suffering into shared narrative through ritual, ceremony, and story. Picture a small band of humans, perhaps 30 individuals, camped along a river valley 40,000 years ago. One of their members has died, killed by a fall while pursuing game along a cliff edge. The loss is devastating, not just emotionally but practically. This was a skilled hunter, a repository of knowledge about animal behavior, migration patterns, and terrain. His death threatens the group's survival in concrete ways. What happens next is remarkable. The group gathers. They paint ochre on the body. They arrange stones in patterns that seem to have symbolic meaning. They keen and cry together, their voices rising and falling in rhythms that synchronize their breathing and their heartbeats. And then, perhaps most importantly, they begin to tell stories. These stories do something profound. They take the raw chaos of death and impose structure upon it. The fallen hunter becomes a character in a narrative that extends backward into the past and forward into the future. He joined the ancestors. He became part of the land. His spirit protects the children. The story does not change the fact of death, but it changes what death means. And in that transformation of meaning lies the psychological salvation of every witness. Anthropologists studying traditional societies around the world have documented this pattern with striking consistency. From the Aboriginal peoples of Australia to the indigenous communities of the Amazon, from Arctic hunting cultures to African pastoral groups, the response to trauma follows remarkably similar contours. There is acknowledgement, there is communal processing, there is narrative construction, and there is reintegration. This reintegration represents another crucial element of ancient psychological survival. Unlike modern Western cultures, which often isolate the traumatized individual, early human societies appear to have done the opposite. The wounded person was kept at the center of communal life. Their experience was witnessed, validated, and woven into the collective understanding of the world. Consider the healing rituals documented among the San people of the Kalahari, practices that have roots extending back thousands of years. When a community member suffers psychological distress, the entire group participates in ceremonial dancing that can last through the night. The rhythmic movement, the repetitive singing, the shared physical exhaustion all work together to alter consciousness and create what researchers describe as a state of collective effervescence. In this state, the boundaries between individuals become permeable. Pain that was trapped inside one person becomes distributed across the group. The burden that was unbearable for one becomes manageable when carried by many. This is not mysticism. Modern neuroscience confirms that synchronized group activities trigger the release of endorphins and oxytocin, neurochemicals that directly reduce stress responses and enhance feelings of social bonding. Our ancestors discovered this mechanism through trial and error over countless generations. They could not have explained the neurochemistry involved, but they understood intuitively that certain practices worked. Drumming worked, chanting worked, moving together in coordinated patterns worked. And so these practices became embedded in cultural tradition, passed down not as arbitrary customs but as essential survival technologies. The role of physical expression in trauma processing deserves particular attention. Modern psychology has recognized that traumatic experience is stored not just in conscious memory but in the body itself. Muscles hold tension. Posture reflects psychological states. The nervous system remains dysregulated long after the threatening event has passed. Ancient humans seem to have intuited this connection between body and mind in ways that Western medicine forgot for centuries and is only now rediscovering. Healing rituals across traditional cultures almost universally involve physical movement. Dancing, swaying, shaking, stamping. These are not mere entertainment or religious theater. They are techniques for discharging the physical residue of overwhelming experience. When the body moves in these particular ways, especially in the context of community and ceremony, something shifts at a neurological level. The fight-or-flight response that was activated during trauma finally finds completion and resolution. There is another psychological mechanism that ancient humans refined to an extraordinary degree. This is the capacity for what might be called selective temporal focus, the ability to narrow attention to the immediate present when past trauma or future anxiety threatens to overwhelm. Watch any traditional hunter tracking prey. There is a quality of absorption in the task that excludes everything else. The direction of a bent blade of grass, the depth of a footprint, the pattern of disturbed leaves. This focused attention was not merely practical, it was psychological medicine. When the mind is fully engaged with the demands of the present moment, it cannot simultaneously ruminate on past horrors or future fears. Ancient life, despite its dangers, actually offered more opportunities for this kind of absorptive focus than modern existence. Every day presented concrete tasks that demanded complete attention: making tools, preparing food, tracking weather patterns, navigating terrain. These activities functioned as natural mindfulness practices, continuously pulling the traumatized mind back from the abyss of memory into the relative safety of now. The harsh environments our ancestors inhabited may have contributed to psychological resilience in another unexpected way. When external challenges are constant and immediate, there is less cognitive space available for internal suffering. This does not mean ancient humans felt less pain. It means the structure of their daily lives provided natural limits on rumination. The antelope must still be hunted. The fire must still be fed. The children must still be watched. There is something deeply instructive in this for our modern understanding of trauma. We have created a world of unprecedented physical safety and comfort, yet rates of psychological distress have not decreased accordingly. Perhaps part of the reason lies in the loss of these natural psychological structures, the communal rituals, the absorptive physical tasks, the shared meaning systems that once helped humans process overwhelming experience. The stories ancient humans told themselves about suffering deserve particular examination. Across traditional cultures, narratives about hardship share certain characteristics. They acknowledge pain rather than denying it. They place individual suffering within a larger cosmic or communal context. They emphasize the possibility of transformation and growth, and they assign meaning to experiences that might otherwise seem random and senseless. A child dies of fever. Modern secular consciousness can only say this was tragedy, meaningless, and terrible. But ancient humans wrapped such losses in stories that gave them purpose. The child became a messenger to the spirit world. The death became a warning about which plants not to gather. The grief became a bond connecting the living to those who walked before. These stories did not make death less painful, but they made the pain bearable because it was pain that meant something. As we examine these ancient psychological technologies, certain patterns emerge that challenge contemporary assumptions. Modern trauma treatment often emphasizes individual processing, private therapy sessions where a single person works through their experiences with a single professional. But the evidence from both anthropology and neuroscience suggests that humans evolved to process trauma collectively. Our nervous systems are designed to regulate through connection with others. Isolation does not heal, isolation compounds. Similarly, modern approaches often aim to eliminate or reduce difficult emotions. But ancient practices seem to take a different approach. Instead of suppressing grief or fear, they created structured contexts for their full expression. The wailing ceremonies, the night-long vigils, the physical collapse into community arms. These were not signs of weakness, but technologies of release. The transition from ancient to modern forms of trauma response did not happen suddenly. Agricultural civilization brought new patterns of life that gradually eroded the old psychological infrastructure. Fixed settlements replaced mobile bands. Private households replaced communal living. Written doctrine replaced oral tradition. Professional specialists replaced community participation. Each of these transitions carried psychological costs that we rarely acknowledge. When healing became the province of experts rather than the community, something essential was lost. When stories became fixed in texts rather than living in collective memory, their adaptive flexibility diminished. When rituals became obligatory forms rather than spontaneous expressions, their neurological power faded. And yet the ancient mechanisms did not disappear entirely. They survive in unexpected places. The football stadium where thousands move and chant in synchrony. The funeral where mourners gather to tell stories about the deceased. The support group where suffering is witnessed and shared. These modern forms carry echoes of practices that kept our ancestors sane through unimaginable hardship. Perhaps the most important lesson from ancient psychological survival is also the simplest. Humans were never meant to face overwhelming experience alone. The isolated individual, processing trauma in silence, is an aberration in the long history of our species. For hundreds of thousands of years, the wounded person was held by the group, literally and figuratively. Their pain was acknowledged, their story was heard, their place in the community was reaffirmed. As dawn breaks over the savannah, the woman who sat vigil through the night rises to face another day. Her brother is gone, The pain of that loss will never fully disappear, but she is not alone. Around her, the group stirs. Someone brings her food. Someone takes the infant so she can rest. Tonight, they will gather again, and the elders will tell stories, and the drummers will play, and the community will hold what no individual could bear. This is the psychological trick ancient humans used to survive trauma. It was not a trick at all. It was wisdom, accumulated over countless generations, encoded in ritual and story and communal practice. And in our fragmented modern world, where so many suffer in isolation, perhaps this ancient wisdom offers something we desperately need to remember. We are built to heal together. We always were.